Fools like them, they suss me out and then they ghost. Girls like me, I like a magnet to a knife. Can like a lighter.
Hey, Nikki here with Beauty J'adore. So I have a new tutorial, and it is my wrap dress pattern, which is number 8600. Let me tell you, I absolutely love this pattern, and I love it for a couple reasons. One is I find it to be pretty easy to navigate. So if you're a new sewer, I think with the going by step, it's pretty easy. Even if you make a mistake, this type of pattern is like really easy to recover on mistakes that you make. Second reason why I love it so much is that you can do so many things with it. So it's a dress, but you can also have it in separates. So you can take the dress part, like the wrap top off, and you can just wrap it around your waist without it going through the little skirt portion. You can make this with high-waisted shorts. You can make it with a pencil skirt. Even for cooler weather, you can do a long sleeve version with like high-waisted pants. It's just so many possibilities with this pattern. I absolutely love it. So if you have any questions, leave me a comment, hit me up on Instagram. I hope you like it. Here we go. Okay, so to start off, we're going to start with the bodice pieces. So there's 4 bodice pieces, and as a reminder, if your fabric isn't quite long enough, you can always cut this part off, which is what I did when I cut the fabric out. I cut this part off, so this was technically in 2 pieces, and then I just stitched it back. And that was only because with this fabric, I didn't want to use like a larger piece, and I just did it this way. It's all going to come out the same. You're not going to be able to see this stitching line right here because it's going to be kind of like folded over. So anyway, you want to put the right sides together for each side. So, okay. And this side. So now what we want to do is we want to take the bodice facing, the 2 pieces that you've already cut out, and we want to go ahead, pin this, stitch it, and then iron the seam open. Then this side and this side. So we want to go ahead and pin these, and then stitch. So, but keep in mind where you want to stitch. Oh, I did paste that. So where you want to stitch is here around the neck and all the way down the front on the top, leaving all of this part here open. So again, on both sides, you want to just stitch the neck and all the way down just the top on both sides. Once you do that, you want to go ahead and press it very flat, making sure both sides are lined up when you press it. Okay, so we have the bodice and the facing nicely stitched together, and it's also pressed. So now what you want to do is go ahead and understitch all the way as far under here as you can go, all the way down here. And you want to do that on both sides. So we have the bodice front understitched and nicely pressed. Now we want to do the same thing with the back. so what we're going to do is, with right sides together, stitch just around the neck, understitch, and then press. Okay, so we have the back bodice completed and top stitched. So what we want to do now is take the front piece and we're going to connect it at the shoulders. So you want to open this up and then open the back up, line up the seams. We're going to pin it, pin the ends, do the same thing with the other side. And then we're going to stitch this using a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And we're going to do the same thing with the other side. So this is the top, this is the back. We're going to open it up, open the back up, line up these seams, pin it, match up the front, pin these, so we're going to stitch using a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And then what we're going to do after we stitch it, we're going to press the seams open. So we have the shoulders stitched together and the seams pressed out. Now what we want to do is take the facing, we want to kind of turn this over, take the facing with right sides together, and you want to pin them. The front to the back. And you want to do the same thing with the actual fabric. You want to do right sides together. These are the right sides. Pin them together. And you want to stitch it using a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Do the same thing over here.
So this is the back facing, and this is the front. Right sides together. You want to pin this. Do the same thing with the front and the back. So this is the back, and this is the front, the actual fabric. We want to match these up and pin them.
Go ahead and stitch these using a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then press the seams of all four open. Okay, so we have these sides finished and we have them nicely pressed out. So now what we want to do is take the armhole and put the two together and base stitch all the way around. We want to do that on both sides. Okay, so I have the armholes base stitched. You want to do the same thing with the bodice bottom. You want to go all the way around, all the way here, and you want to base stitch all of this, the entire perimeter. So now what we want to do is we want to take the bodice facing, the two pieces that you've already cut out, and we want to go ahead, pin this, stitch it, and then iron the seam open. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to, starting with the back side of the bodice, we want to take the bodice facing, find the center of the back, which is right here. We want to line this up with the center of the back. We want to pin it, and then pin all the way around. Okay, so once you get down to the very end, you're just going to stitch it slightly past where the end is. And then go ahead and pin the other side, do the exact same thing. Then you're going to stitch it. Once you stitch it, you're going to fold it over and press the seam. Okay, so just for clarification, once you have this stitched on, you want to just fold it over and you want to press it. You're going to press this all the way, and then once you press it in this direction, you want to fold it over and press it again. So it's going to look like this once you're done. Okay, so we have the perimeter kind of like pressed out, and I have it pinned over. So what you want to do now is go through from the very top, which, by the way, I haven't cut the ends off yet, so the ends are a bit longer, but just to show you kind of like what this looks like. So you're going to stitch starting right in the crevice. And you want to be very careful as you stitch all the way around. And you want to stitch all the way in there so that you won't be able to see the stitching. So you're going to go ahead and stitch and then press it one more time. Okay, so I have the bottom portion done. So what's going to happen when you get to this, to the ends? So we still have the ends left over, right? So what you want to do is you want to fold this over like such. You want to pin it, and then you want to reinforce the stitch right here. You want to do that on each side, and then cut the excess off. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and move on to the sleeves. So the sleeves, which are very oversized, what we want to do is put the right sides together, pin the sides, and then using a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, go ahead and stitch and then press open the seams. We're going to do that to both of the sleeves. Okay, so I have the sleeve, the seam pressed out. So what we want to do now is take the bodice. We want to, so this is folded. there's this little piece right here, which is kind of like the corner. We want to match this up with the top of the sleeve opening. So this very part, the very tip of it, we want to go ahead and pin it to the seam of the arm opening. So what this is doing is just establishing this is the center part of the sleeve, and this is the top of the sleeve opening. That way it'll be even on both sides. So then you want to take the bottom part. You want to measure 2 inches. So from the 2-inch point, we want to just stick a pin there, and in the other direction we want to do the same thing. So 2 inches. And what I'm doing here is establishing a start point for the sleeve and where we're going to go in and kind of put the sleeve in using the pleats, and it's so that it's even on both sides. So then we want to take the bottom seam and pin this to the bottom seam of the bodice. Yeah. Okay. So this is the bottom of the arm opening, and this is the bottom of the sleeve. So where we pin this one right here, this 2-inch point, we want to just go ahead and then pin this to the arm opening. We want to do the other side the same way. And we're going to keep the pins in because this is where we want to start the pleating portion. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and pleat to fit. So there's no rhyme or reason. There's no particular, hey, get out. There's no particular number of pleats, but we're just going to go ahead and pleat as we go around. But do keep in mind that when you pleat, you do want to make sure the pleats are all the same size. And I can kind of eyeball it. And so you will be able to do that as well. Now, it may take you a couple times to kind of get it right. You may end up kind of taking the sleeve out and redoing it. But at some point, you'll be able to get it in. That way it fits perfectly. So when you get to the top, what I like to do is do like a large pleat. And by doing that, it allows the sleeve to kind of stand out a bit more at the top. Hey. So you can see this. And you can also test it. You can just turn it over and you can see what it's going to look like. And so if you want more gathers, if you want more volume, just do a whole lot of very small pleats. So what you want to do is do the exact same thing with the other side of the sleeve. Also, keep in mind, my pleats are going in the down direction. You want to do the exact same thing in the same direction on the other side. So you'll be able to see what it looks like. And then what you want to do is go ahead and stitch this in place and do the same thing to the other sleeve. Okay, so the sleeves have been attached. And now what you want to do is, so let's cut these off. You want to start at the bottom seam and use some type of measuring gauge, or you can also use just a tape measure and fold over 1 inch. You want to go all the way around. Till you get to the other side. And then stitch as close as you can to the edge. Okay, so we have the casing for the elastic done. Now what you want to do is take the elastic, put it onto a safety pin, and you want to feed the elastic through the casing. So it completely depends on your comfort level, how tight you want the elastic to fit. Okay, so once you get to the end, that's when you want to begin to manipulate the elastic to get it to fit. This is a good time to maybe just like slide it on your arm and try to fit it and see how tight it is or how loose it is. I can kind of eyeball it for myself to see how tight it is. So then you just want to, let's see, stitch the elastic up and then close the casing. And then repeat this process with the other sleeve. Okay, so now we're going to work on the skirt. So this is the back of the skirt and these are the 2 pieces. So what we're going to do is we're going to first start by putting the pockets in. So this is the right side. Yeah, this is the right side of the fabric. So what you want to do is you want to place the pocket at the pocket stop where you'll have this marked. And you want to do the same thing with the other side as well. And then pin this. So you also want to, for this, you want to put the right sides together and sew on the wrong side. And so you want to go to the zipper stop, which is right here. So what you want to do is you want to do a basting stitch from the top to the zipper stop, and then a regular 3-point stitch for the rest of the way down. And you want to use a 5-inch, 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And once you do that, go ahead and iron the seam allowance open just for the back. Okay, so we have the front pockets attached and we have the seam in the back. Now go ahead and according to the zipper instructions, install the zipper. Okay, so now we have the zipper installed, and now we want to work on the front of the skirt. Okay, so this is the right side of the skirt. We want to attach the pockets and place the top of the pocket at the notch. And just go ahead and pin this. Do the same thing to the other side. And this is because the front and the back side is so similar. When you're connecting your pockets, you want to do right side. So this is the good part of the fabric to the good part of the fabric. So this would be the wrong side of the fabric, the wrong side of the fabric. So we want to go ahead and stitch close to the edge on each side and then press forward. Okay, so we have the front of the skirt completed. Now what we want to do is with right sides together, place the front and the back together. Matching up the sides. And you want to make sure you leave the pockets loose. Stitch down the sides using a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and press open the seam. Okay, so now we have the front and the back connected. And what we want to do now is seal up the pockets. But first, you want to clip both sides. You want to clip it, make sure you don't clip through the seam. So you just kind of want to clip right here, and you want to do the same thing at the top. And you want to do this side as well. And then go ahead and stitch the pocket closed on both sides. Okay, so now the pockets are closed and I've turned it right side out. So what you want to do now is go ahead and press the pocket forward. That way it just lays like really nice and flat. So you want to do that on both sides. Okay, so we have the pockets installed and pressed out nicely. Now we want to go ahead and put on the facing for the skirt. So we want to just unzip this a bit. Take one of the facing pieces. You want to kind of wrap this around here about an inch or so and then pin it. And pin this all the way around. And then once you get to the top, you just want to wrap this around the top and pin this. And then you want to stitch along this edge and do the same thing with the other side. Once you stitch that, fold that back over and then press it. Okay, so after you have it nicely pressed out, what you want to do now is just fold these sides over and pin. And you want to fold them so that the crease is at the very top. So you want to go all the way around. Okay, so once you have that folded over, I do a blind stitch, but you can hand stitch it. If you don't want to do that, you could just stitch the top. I think blind stitching or hand stitching, it'll just make it look neater because you won't have the stitching on top. But if you don't want to take the time to do that, it'll still look good with the stitching, but go ahead and stitch this in place. And repeat this for the other side. Okay, so we have the facing applied, and what we're going to do now is turn this portion over 2.5 inches. You want to pin it and then stitch across here in place. Okay, now we want to fold this under 1 inch all the way around and then do a blind stitch.